Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are now down to the last two teams, two finalists of the MAI Bangkok Business Challenge at SASIN 2014. So the next team, the next finalist up to present now. Let's give a warm welcome to team ZYMtronix Catalytic System Inc. from Cornell University, United States. Okay. Just for some technical, can we make sure we have the screen up on the in front of the judges? Okay, so let me remind you that you have 30 minutes for the presentation. Okay, during which, after 5 minutes, the judge will ask questions, and they will, believe me. Okay. But you receive 3 time warnings or notifications, one after the 5 minutes to allow for the fully interactive, and then 3 minutes and 1 minute before the end. Okay, so okay, now everything's up and running. You guys ready? Yeah. Okay. We'll start the clock as soon as you start. Okay. Good luck.
Thank you. Okay. Good morning. And thank you for joining us. We are the Cornell University reps, Team ZYMtronix, a clean technology company seeking to stop the spread of antibiotic-resistant bacteria, the worst bacteria that have developed immunities against our best line of antibiotics. To do this, we have a technology that's protected by 3 Cornell University IPs, a $150,000 NSF award, and international talent, sharing among us over 20 years of research, consulting, and litigation experience, specifically for healthcare. Now, I'm Juan Diego Alonso, the team leader for ZYMtronix, and joining me on stage, my colleagues, the inventor of the technology, Dr. Stéphane Cordier, our fearless marketing lead, Stephanie Shi, and our financials expert, Evan Moore. And even though we come from a diverse background, we share one common goal. We're committed to commercializing this technology. Now, antibiotic-resistant bacteria is a worldwide concern. But let's look at this problem a little bit more specifically in the US, where it is well documented. Last year in the US, over 18,000 tons of antibiotics were consumed by humans and animals. Humans consumed 30%, animals 70%. This resulted in over $50 billion of healthcare-associated costs. Now take a moment and imagine a world where antibiotics are no longer useful. The director of the WHO says that we're heading that way. This could result in people dying from common infections or routine surgical procedures. This is a problem that targets developed, developing, and emerging markets alike. And society simply cannot let this happen. Society needs a solution. And here to tell you about that solution, the inventor of the technology.
Thank you, Juan Diego. So to solve this very complex problem, I actually developed a very simple solution. And we use this solution to develop super cleaning agents. We call them Chemox and Patox. Chemox, we mediate the antibiotics, when Patox simply kills bacteria. It is a very simple 4-step process that kills 99% of the bacteria, neutralizes 99% of the antibiotics. It is also active against other molecules, such as hormone, painkillers, and very commonly used drug in the healthcare industry for both human, but also working for animals. It's a platform technology that is fully tunable and can be used for different applications, and also is fully biodegradable. When the product is released in the environment, it just simply degrades. So this platform technology can be deployed in different vehicles, and for the use for humans, we found out that the best way to use it is directly at the source, in the toilets. So we developed a product that hangs directly on the side of the toilets and is being activated each time you flush it. So why the toilets? Well, it's really simple. treating 1 gallon of water is cheap. Treating 1,000 gallons of water is way more expensive. Our direct competitors, the cleaning product manufacturers, are treating the problem at the source by killing bacteria, but that's only 50% of the solution. On the other hand, our indirect competitors, the wastewater treatment companies, are treating water in plants and pipes, but they're doing it at very high cost. So when we're comparing the cost, we found out that actually we have a good, cost-effective technology because we don't need capital investment. We don't need to modify the infrastructures. And qualitatively, ZYMtronix technology is the only technology that can kill bacteria and remediate antibiotic at the source at the same time. We do 2 jobs at the right location and at the right cost. Remember our mission. This is how we do stop the spread of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. And with this, I'm going to turn to Stephanie, who is going to present her business model to achieve that goal.
Thank you very much, Stefan. So who are our core customers? We recognize that there are both B2B and B2C opportunities. And looking at existing companies who play in this space, we recognize that we expect the revenue to increase at 6.6% CAGR over the next year. And in addition, by 2018, total revenues for this industry will be over $7 billion.
Good morning.
Yes, hi.
I just got a text from a friend of mine who's in the room who said I'm a very tough judge.
Fantastic.
I apologize for that. I totally believe that you've identified a problem. Well done. I don't have any ability to judge whether your science works or not, so I'm just going to accept that it works. Mm-hmm. Well done. I have serious concerns about the marketing, which you're about to tell us about.
Correct.
I want to ask some questions about the marketing. So
Sure.
You're going to put your product onto the rim block, so every time somebody flushes, okay, it does something.
Yes.
And you're talking to SC Johnson right now about this. So how much do you have to charge SC Johnson, or what are you going to charge them? How much are they going to charge the consumer for this? And why would the consumer pay extra? And does the consumer really care about eliminating antibiotics from around the world? You know, I just don't understand what your core consumer proposition is and how you're going to get people to pay for this.
All right, so these are fantastic questions, and let me just skip ahead. So in these conversations that we've been having with CPG companies, we're still in a informational interview phase where we're just trying to understand more about our core customer from their experience. Now, from the licensing side, we haven't actually reached the point where we're trying to understand exactly what the terms of our licensing agreement will be. I think we're not quite at that point yet because our prototype still needs to be tested. Now, as for why would they be interested in licensing our technology in the first place, they've been able to give us great insight on the LOHA segment, the customers who are really interested in these green sustainable technologies, as well as just your overall toilet consumer who's just looking for a cleaning product. Now, the vast majority of consumers of toilet cleaning products are customers who just are interested in the best clean. They just want to make sure that their home is sanitized, right? And for this core customer, they would be the ones who would appeal to the message of the greater good, the sustainable aspect of it. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
It answers it in the sense that you have admitted you don't know a lot of the answers, and that you're in the learning phase about this. I would say don't underestimate this. This is incredibly important
Yes.
and crucial to the success of your company,
Yes.
is how you're going to convince consumers to pay for this.
So
Yeah, I think I would like to add on to that is that how can you convince the consumer that this is a real selling point, that they will pay or pay extra for this?
okay.
Because I don't think that a lot of people will know about the antibiotic resistance,
Yes.
and that is now a big issue. So who will educate the consumer?
Right.
So it might be on the hospital side, more the medical side, that maybe you should be concentrating on.
Precisely. So that is exactly where we are going. We recognize that there are phases in how we actually launch this product, and especially in the short term, we are focusing on the B2B segment. In the short term, we expect 90% of our revenues to actually come from the B2B side, where we expect to actually directly manufacture to this niche hospital and healthcare facility market. Now, why do we go there? Because that's where, sorry, go ahead.
So yeah, building on the same thing,
Yeah.
I'm still not utterly convinced. B2B, if we just drill down, why would the hospital actually care about what the quality of the water that leaves the hospital?
So this depends on country. And if you look at the European region, they're actually increasing the regulation and increasing their expectations for how hospitals treat their wastewater, which ultimately is actually toxic water. Now, in the United States, in that market, although we are less behind in terms of actually creating mandatory regulation for what comes out of our hospital systems, they need to care because nowadays hospitals are being judged on quality outcomes such as in-hospital infection rates.
True. I think
Right.
I think we all buy that. What I think we're getting at is that any product that requires consumers to change their behavior radically, or that requires for consumers to all of a sudden be educated, doesn't sound like a product that's going to fly tomorrow. Especially any product that requires the consumers to be more alert and pay for something that a problem they barely knew existed. Up until yesterday, I didn't know it existed. Also, it's not an easy sell. So what I'm sort of looking for is that what you're going to say, well, that's true, we considered all that. Next month, we're going to go this way. This is the path of least resistance. This is how it's actually going to work.
All right. Let me try to answer your question. So once we have this product being in hospitals, that's one message that we can send to our consumer. Hey, this is the standard for what you see in hospitals nowadays. In addition, we're going to have the support of the CPG companies who are working with in order to make sure that that message spreads out to our mass market. We definitely want to leverage their core competency of being able to reach the households.
No,
I don't see-
I think
Oh, go ahead.
I think the issue is, okay, you want your product into the hospitals.
Yes.
But how to get into hospital? Because there is no whatever hospital standard that exactly is saying that you have to reduce this, or there is no national law saying that they have to treat their toxic water correctly, right? Without that, why should they spend more? Okay.
Yes, so we've engaged in conversations with management at some of the most prestigious hospitals in the United States, and we have been able to identify KOLs, key opinion leaders, who are influencing patient care, for example, and have the power to influence what the standards are for operations in the hospital facility. We're working on those relationships.
I was going to also say that your discussion, I think, as I recall, your revenue is mainly coming from B2B. But the fact that you're up here telling us about B2C already makes me a little bit nervous. Like, have you lost your focus? And that's question number one. You know, my point is, what is your focus, number one? And number two, based upon what Kun Sopan has asked you about the demands against hospitals, so what? You're going to get 10 hospitals that care. That's all the customers you're going to get?
I'm going to answer this one. So there is actually a different set of regulation, right? We presented the data for the United States because it's actually an emerging problem over there. The CDC released in September 2013 a threat report that triggered actually, a set of concern in the press. I think we counted more than 300, 600 papers, newspapers about antibiotic resistance. So it's a growing concern. Now that said, there is other other regulations in Europe, for example. The technology that I was presenting, was actually coming from the data were coming from an hospital in Germany that decided to treat their waste as chemical waste in advance of the regulation. So you have already company in Europe operating, selling, these smaller wastewater treatment plants just to do that job. And this is the number, the $3 million cap actually was coming from there.
I accept that. I come from Scandinavia, and you will probably see that those are some of the countries that have standards that might be. Maybe we like law. We like to introduce laws for everything, but basically, that becomes then a little bit of a CSR sale almost. So you are now looking for customers who are doing stuff over and above what they have to do. It's a much more difficult sale to investors like us, isn't it?
I think, so we talked already to the hospital, and at the core of everything that they're doing, it's really the well-being of the patient.
Which would be inside the hospital.
We would
This
be
is stuff
inside
leaving the hospital where the patients don't care anymore.
That's true, but there's also a set of regulation, maybe not on the antibiotics, but like on biohazard and everything. Coming from the university, for example, all these facilities, they're really going beyond the call of duty to do this kind of treatment. And hospitals
maybe with 5 years early. Maybe we should meet again in 5 years.
I do think actually we can start the sales actually in 1 year or 2 actually as the business plan is presenting, at least demonstrating with a couple of beta customers that it's working.
Okay, so then let's talk about who's your target. I want to know who's your number 1, 2, 3 clients that you're thinking we're going to go after this hospital or that person.
And if I may add to that, because these companies like SC Johnson, these companies Johnson Johnson, they have, like many other companies, made it their business to scare people to buy stuff for a problem they never heard of. Right? It happens all the time. Oh, bed bugs or whatever it is, and all of a sudden you get this stuff that fortunately also work on bed bugs. Doesn't that seem, especially in the States where people are scared of many things, doesn't that seem a more viable way to go? Like you actually get these guys to think, we actually think that we can have flanker products over and above what we have now that will appeal to these, and then the time to market is much faster, and you don't need necessarily to convince anyone. You let them do it.
I'm not going to comment too much on the actually using or not using a scare tactic. But what I will say is that when we've been speaking to people from SC Johnson, or people like people from SC Johnson, and they actually tell us the same thing that one of the judges said, let's assume that this technology does work. If it does what you say it does, which is work continuously and effectively kill not just bacteria, but the antibiotics in the toilet bowl, you can actually charge a premium of at least 50 cents on the type of products that we already sell, which in a little way answers part of your question from before, but in another way it means, yes, they would be willing to take the risk of marketing something like this, and they probably have a very good capacity of understanding how the consumer thinks and how to sell it to them.
But if I'm a consumer, I'm not going to pay 50%. I'm not going to pay any premium to save the world. Like, I mean, I understand the importance of it, but you'll find that people very rarely make a personal sacrifice to reduce the bacteria. And plus, anyways, the source of bacteria and the source of antibiotics in the world is not coming from a person's toilet, is it? It's coming from hospitals and other places, or where is it coming from?
And remember that you're saying that if somebody has antibiotics in their system, this will take care of it. Well, at any given moment, how many people are taking antibiotics? So if I'm a consumer, I'll say, I won't buy your product, but if I happen to take antibiotics once a year, then maybe I'll go out and buy it once. I don't see that it's a long-term consumer proposition.
So we actually have 2 value propositions. First of all, it's a cleaning product. So we do kill bacteria as we clean the toilets, and that's basically what the product does. Now, the antibiotic remediation, it's an add-on actually to that. To answer the questions, the hospitals actually, this is where you find the highest consumption of antibiotics, but also the most diversity of them. This is why actually the product for hospitals is charged at a higher price than the products that we're selling actually, that we want to develop for the consumers.
Can you give me an idea of what hospital you think is going to adopt this first? Certainly one in Ithaca.
So, well, Ithaca, New York actually is a very small hospital, but they actually, I do think they would be willing actually to try the product and be at least a beta customers. We really want to also collaborate with, use the Cornell network. We have a wonderful university in New York, School of Medicine. We're already talking actually with EHNS, which is in charge of the safety and of the hospital. So we're already talking to these people. They're acutely aware of the problem, and that's really something that they're trying to solve. Go ahead.
Coming back to the actual problem, is it is it the states that is the actual problem? Because could we also, so like you convince a few housewives here and there to buy the product, but then we find out that the majority of this problem actually comes from India and China, then it doesn't really matter. What are the data actually?
So the data is everywhere actually. This is why the CDC reacted so strongly actually this year. People typically thinking that antibiotic resistance is an hospital issue, right? You touch somebody else, contact, surface contact. So this is why you need to sanitize everything. The big issue is we throw so many antibiotics in the environment that now you see resistance sprouting everywhere. And hospitals are an issue. People taking antibiotic at home is an issue. But for the first time this year, the FDA actually is also recognizing that farming is an issue. That 70% of the antibiotic are used in farming, 30% is used in the healthcare sector. So it's literally an issue that is going everywhere. The big question is how we save the antibiotics, how we protect the antibiotics that are still working. Hospitals right now are working on 5 molecules that can save your life. We used to have close to 100, 150 different molecules, produced in the 50s. They're not efficient anymore. They just use actually to fatten, pigs, cows, chickens. So it's really a question of how we protect what remains active. It costs close to $1 billion to produce a molecule of antibiotic. It's not the drug manufacturers don't have any incentive to doing it when resistance develops in 5 to 10 years. So the question is, how do we protect what works right now? So we don't.
May I interrupt? It seems that the whole world have to participate in this, and so it might not guarantee that even you try to help with your small scale, that you can stop this kind of bacteria. So can it turn into a medicine instead? Can it turn into, so who take a lot of antibiotic, so you take it inside yourself and then it fight within your body and then something happen, the bacteria die?
That would be actually a very good value proposition. The big issue, the way antibiotics are working, they really need to overwhelm the bacteria. So you need in your body to have a very high concentration of bacteria. When you take these molecules, your body just excretes it. So typically, when you take the antibiotic in and when it's being released in the environment, you still have close to 70% to 80% of the drug that is still active. So the problem is not really what's happening in your body. The problem is what's becoming after. What you do with the waste. We need to think about this molecule like a life cycle analysis. They're being produced by a drug manufacturer, being prescribed by a doctor, being used in an hospital, and then what do you do with the end product?
So there seems to be a lot of skepticism among the judges regarding your ability to convince consumers to buy this or hospitals. Is there a third way, because I want to build on what you're saying, if it can't be a medicine, can you go to the governments of the world? Can you go to the United States and have the government pass a law requiring that every hospital do this?
That's a very good question. So the CDC has released this threat report. The World Health Organization has the same threat report. European Union has been actually working on antibiotics for the last 10 years, and they all have recommendation. So prescription, obviously they got the source, how are they being used, but also what you do actually with the waste. I totally agree with you. I think there is some places in the world actually would be easier, like European Union. Emerging countries actually would be great because the products actually is cost effective, and you don't really have to build new infrastructures. So it's just, a new way of using the molecule instead of building.
So what about one other one that we haven't talked about is where do antibiotics come from?
Okay.
Well, they come from pharmaceutical companies. Now, maybe pharmaceutical companies would feel pressure over time, and maybe they would want an end-to-end solution. Have you considered approaching them?
Good.
We actually have. Currently, right now, we're talking with Pfizer. We've sent them the intellectual property on the technology, and they're having their teams of scientists actually reviewing it before we have any more conversations with them. We've also actually been talking to some wastewater treatment companies who treat the problem a little bit more downstream, specifically UV Technologies, which is the largest provider of water cleaning services around the world. It actually has a really big footprint and impact here in Asia. They're also reviewing the technology. I think though, like we've mentioned, there's still a few more final tests that need to be done. Then we should probably take this to a third party so they can do their own review of it, confirm our findings, and then go back to the negotiating table and speak with the parties that I just mentioned.
In the time we have left, let's move on. I think we've done that issue to death. Want to talk a little bit about the investment and the financing. You're looking for $300,000, and you're willing to give up 8% of the company for that?
That's correct.
Okay, so that's what, a $3 million pre-money valuation, something
That's
like
also
that?
correct.
Okay, so why is your company worth $3 million today? You've got some technology, but you haven't proven anything in the marketplace. How do you get $3 million of value today?
Sure. So that valuation is actually $300,000. That valuation is based on the investment actually occurring in 2015. But, so it's $300,000 next year, once we have the tech actually validated. And additionally, it's based on what we view as our market, what we view as our sales. So the initial sales, as you'll notice, both on the old business plan and in our new financials, for hospitals are actually fairly limited. We're not saying we're going to go sell to 50 hospitals our first year. It doesn't take that. The margins are good, the price is right, and for fairly high revenue and fairly high margins, you can actually do a lot of business with a limited number of hospitals. We're not talking every hospital in New York State. In addition, we're looking at reasonably small CPG sales as well. We've looked at it, the numbers you see are from a licensing perspective on the CPG. So we're not saying we're going to conquer the world on the CPG side, and those are actually only based on the green part of the toilet cleaning market, CPG, in the United States, which we view as our target core consumer.
So in 2007, you have, let's say, roughly getting close to $1 million in revenue from hospitals, 840 or something. How many hospitals would that be?
That would be like 250K times, so, sorry, yeah, about 40, roughly.
Okay.
More or less. Add a few.
The antibiotic leads to antibiotic resistant bacteria, right? And would the ZYMtronix leads to ZYMtronix resistant bacteria in the future?
I'm going to let Stefan take that real quick.
That's an excellent question, actually. The technology works, and I like to talk about the technology, right? So the technology produces free radicals. So it's not, the free radical produces stress on the bacteria, and this is the only thing, actually, that bacteria cannot resist. They've been around for 3.5 billion years. They're still dying out of oxidative stress.
But when someone do the antibiotics, they believe the same, right?
Yeah, but on antibiotics, the antibiotics actually were created in the 40s, 50s. Antibiotic resistance takes 10 years. So look at, a biological solution that works for a long time. We do have, so the technology is a blend of enzymes and nanoparticles. The enzyme that I'm using actually to produce the cleaning product, you have some of them actually on your skin, you have some of them in your lungs, you have there's some of them in the milk. It's everywhere. This is your first line of defense against bacteria. What we're proposing is just take this enzyme, boost them, supercharge them, and put them in a place where they would, do what they're meant for, and deliver the job. So I don't think bacteria would easily adapt to this kind of product.
So in your 5-year pro forma income statement, until 2019, you have 0 full-time employees. So
yes,
that means that the 4 of you are, for the next 5 years, are not quitting your jobs and you're doing this part-time.
I was brought into this team to look at the financials. What you see is the sheet that was given out to you today is actually the new financials. I didn't give you the full layout because we were talking, 15, 20 pages printed out. But what that actually would say is that you're seeing a growth of several employees per year. It actually grows later on.
I have a more fundamental question.
So
will the four of you quit your jobs and will you do this full time?
So I quit my job last month at Cornell, and I'm full-time actually working for ZYMtronix. I'm the lead PI on the NFSEP grant, and I believe in the technology. I mean, it's not easy to leave the academic sector and do something new, but I took the risk.
And I'm graduating in May, and Stefan and I are extremely committed to getting as much as possible out of this and to making it a possibility. And the reason why Stephanie and Evan are here is so that we can convince them to tag along with us, because we cannot do this without them. So please help us convince them to join the team.
And I think the other answer is we flew to Ithaca from Ithaca for 3 days. We're going back on Monday. So yes, we're totally committed.
But you got to enjoy Bangkok and its protests.
I will not comment.
You have 1 minute. Why don't you wrap up and tell us why we should invest in your company?
Yep. So the reason this past year has been great. We've had a lot of advancement. We have our first prototype. We're part of the accelerator program at Cornell. And what we think all that leverages into is a very strong company. We're asking for an equity investment, and we commit to an on-site demonstration, sales the next year, and a 90% investor IRR by 2019. What we also offer is an exit strategy that we believe is very attractive, an acquisition by a strategic buyer at an IRR over the hurdle rate by 2020. And that's what we're truly offering, is we want money to go toward our mission because it will ultimately save lives. And that's why you should invest in our company, to make money while doing good.
Thank you.
Thank you. ZYMtronix Catalytic System from Cornell.
แต่ละทีมที่นำเสนอในวันนี้นะครับถือว่าสุดยอดมากเลยนะครับไม่ว่าจะเป็นแนวทางในการนำเสนอไอเดียแล้วก็ความเป็นไปได้ในโอกาสทางธุรกิจในโลกของชีวิตจริงทีมที่5เมื่อสักครู่นี้นะครับที่นำเสนอไปนั่นคือทีม ZYMtronix Catalytic Systems Inc. นะครับจากมหาวิทยาลัย Cornell University จากประเทศสหรัฐอเมริกาถามคุณแพรก่อนแล้วกันนะครับว่าจุดเด่นของทีมนี้เนี่ยซึ่งจริงๆแล้วศัพท์เทคนิคเยอะมาก มีเรื่องไหนบ้างครับผม
ตอนแรกไม่เข้าใจเลยค่ะนึกว่าเขาพูดถึงเป็นอะไรสักอย่างที่ช่วยกำจัดแบคทีเรียที่ทนต่อยาปฏิชีวนะแต่จริงๆแล้วมันไม่ใช่ยาหรือไม่ใช่สารเคมี แต่ว่าเป็นผลิตภัณฑ์อะไรบางอย่างซึ่งก็ยังไม่แน่ใจว่าอยู่ใน presentation หรือเปล่านะคะตะกี้เห็นรูปหนึ่งยังงงๆอยู่ว่าใช่ตัวนี้หรือเปล่าแล้วก็ใช้อย่างไรไม่เห็นได้อธิบายว่าใช้อย่างไรเท่าที่ดูจากข้อมูลเนี่ยชิ้นละ40 เหรียญต้องเอามาใส่ใช่ไหมคะไม่ถูกนะคะต้องเอามาใส่ที่ส้วมหรือเปล่าที่โรงพยาบาลหรือเปล่าอันนี้ยังไม่ค่อยชัดเจนเลยนะคะแล้วก็คือน่าสนใจมากแต่ว่าคือยังไม่ชัดเจนแล้วก็ทำให้เรามีคำถามต่อไปว่าเนี่ยตะกี้ที่กรรมการถามว่าแล้วคุณทำไมแทนที่คุณจะไปติดต่อกับลูกค้าที่เป็นบริษัทที่อะไรดูเรื่องน้ำนะคะ water resources management หรือว่าการบำบัดน้ำเนี่ยจากโรงพยาบาลทำไมไม่คุยกับบริษัทยาไปซะเลยเพราะว่าเดี๋ยวนี้ CSR เนี่ยทำให้บริษัทที่เป็นผู้ผลิตเนี่ยต้องตระหนักถึงการทิ้งของผลิตภัณฑ์ของเขา
คือต้องดูแล
ใช่ต้องดูแล
สภาพแวดล้อม
after use ค่ะก็เลยยังงงๆอยู่ว่าทำไมเขาถึงเพิ่งเริ่มคุยกับไฟเซอร์กับบริษัทยานะคะแต่ว่าที่เขาคุยไปเนี่ยก็คือโรงพยาบาลกับบริษัทบำบัดน้ำเสียเท่านั้นเอง
ซึ่งนี้ถือว่าเป็นคำถามใหญ่มากนะครับที่บรรดากรรมการเนี่ยนะครับซึ่งเขามีประสบการณ์เรื่องของการลงทุนมามากพอสมควรเนี่ยก็ตั้งคำถามไว้เยอะมากคุยกันผมว่าไม่ต่ำกว่า10 นาทีด้วยซ้ำนะครับว่าตกลงกลุ่มลูกค้าของคุณเนี่ยเป็นใครกันแน่ไม่ชัดเจนเลยบอกว่าจะไปทางด้านของโรงพยาบาลจะไปก็ไม่แน่ใจเหมือนกันเพราะว่าแต่ละโรงพยาบาลเขามีมาตรฐานที่แตกต่างกันทำไมเขาต้องมาจ่ายเพิ่มยิ่งไม่ต้องไปพูดถึงเลยถ้าเป็นคอน sumer อย่างพวกเราเนี่ย
ใช่ค่ะเรื่อง consumer ยังไม่ต้องพูดเลยคือตะกี้พูดไปนี่ทำให้ยิ่งงงเข้าไปใหญ่จนกระทั่งทำให้กรรมการนี่มีคำถามที่อาจจะไม่เกี่ยวข้องกับตัว product นี้เลยด้วยซ้ำเพราะว่าทำให้งงไปมากเลยนะคะแต่ว่าที่น่าสนใจคือกรรมการสนใจในแผนธุรกิจเขามากแล้วก็สนใจที่จะลงทุนเพียงแต่ว่าทุกคนก็ยังไม่แน่ใจว่าตกลงลูกค้าคุณคือใคร
ครับคือจุดเด่นหนึ่งที่ผมเห็นเนี่ยก็คือว่าเขามีประสบการณ์คือคนในทีมเนี่ยมีบางท่านที่อยู่ในแวดวงของการแพทย์ด้วยเขาพยายามจะขายตรงจุดนี้แต่ว่าก็คล้ายๆกับทีมที่แล้ว2ทีมที่แล้วนะครับผมที่เหมือนกับว่าจะมีประสบการณ์แล้วก็พูดไอเดียที่ค่อนข้างดีแต่ความเป็นรูปธรรมเนี่ยยังไม่เห็นสักเท่าไหร่นะครับเรื่องของการพัฒนา Product ถึงแม้ว่าบอกว่าจะคิดค้นจะทำวิจัยมานานพอสมควรแล้วแต่ยังไม่เห็น Product จริงเลยว่าออกมาเป็นรูปแบบใด
นะครับข้อดีของ finalist ทั้ง6เนี่ยก็คือทุกคนรักแผนธุรกิจของตัวเองมากรัก product หรือว่ารักตัว service ที่นำเสนอนะคะทุกคนมี passion เกี่ยวกับแผนธุรกิจเขามากเลยซึ่งอันนี้เป็นข้อดีแต่ว่าที่สำคัญก็คือคุณจะทำการตลาดยังไงคุณจะมีลูกค้าสัมพันธ์อย่างไรแล้วก็คุณจะทำกำไรอย่างไรอันนี้คือเป็นสิ่งที่ต้องตอบความยั่งยืนของแผนธุรกิจจริงๆ
ถ้าหากว่ามองภาพรวมคืออย่าง ตัวนวัตกรรมนี้เหมือนกับว่าจะเป็นสิ่งใหม่ของโลกใบนี้ซะด้วยซ้ำเนี่ยนะครับ
ใช่
เพราะว่าก็ยังงงๆกันอยู่เนี่ย
ใช่ค่ะ
แต่ว่าในแง่ของภาพรวมถ้าหากว่าเราคิดไอเดียในการทำธุรกิจสิ่งหนึ่งได้เนี่ยนะครับแล้วเราอยากจะสร้างตลาดสร้างดีมานด์ขึ้นมาเองเนี่ยทางด้านของคุณแพรเนี่ยนะครับมีแนวคิดหรือว่าคำแนะนำสำหรับผู้ประกอบการยังไงครับ
ค่ะสำหรับทีมนี้พายยังไม่เห็นภาพของตลาดเลยว่าขนาดของตลาดที่เขาเห็นเนี่ยคือใหญ่แค่ไหนแล้วที่ไหนบ้างนะคะเพราะว่าลูกค้าเนี่ยยังไม่ชัดเจน ซึ่งอันนี้ถ้าทำให้มันชัดเจนตั้งแต่แรกเนี่ยน่าจะทำให้แผนนี้ค่อนข้างแข็งแรงเลยทีเดียว เพราะว่ามันเป็นอะไรที่ต้องมีอยู่แล้ว เพราะว่าเรื่องยาปฏิชีวนะเนี่ยเป็นปัญหาอย่างมากเลย ซึ่งเขาก็ตั้งใจที่จะแก้ปัญหานี้ แต่ว่าเขายังแก้ปัญหาของเราไม่ได้คือต้องให้เราเห็นให้ชัดเจนว่าตกลงตลาดนี้จะว่ายังไง ใหญ่แค่ไหนแล้วจะเริ่มตรงไหนค่ะคือคำแนะนำก็คือทำให้มันชัดเจนตั้งแต่แรกเลยว่าจะทำmarketing plan อย่างไรค่ะ
คือเราต้องคุยกันในทีมก่อน
ใช่ค่ะ
วางแผนกันก่อนอ่านเกมไม่ขาดก่อน
ใช่ค่ะ
นะครับแล้วก็ค่อยไปดูว่าตลาดกลุ่มลูกค้าของเราเนี่ยจริงๆแล้วเราอยากที่จะลุยไปตลาดไหนเอาให้ชัดเจนนะครับซึ่งกลุ่มนี้ก็ยังขาดตรงจุดนี้อยู่นะครับแต่ถ้าหากว่าพูดถึงอย่างเช่นทางด้านของทีมเขาเนี่ยอ้างบอกว่าสิ่งที่เห็นก็คือว่าโรงพยาบาลเช่นในกลุ่มของสแกนดิเนเวียนะครับหรือแม้กระทั่งในสหรัฐอเมริกาเขาคอนเซิร์นหรือว่ากังวลค่อนข้างมากกับเรื่องของความสะอาดเรื่องของสุขภาพพลานามัยด้วยนะครับกับอีกฝั่งหนึ่งคือฝั่งเอเชียตรงนี้ก็อาจจะต้องพิจารณาอยู่เหมือนกันนะครับว่าโอกาสเนี่ยมันก็ยังมีเยอะแต่ว่าคนอาจจะยังไม่ได้สนใจนะครับผมคือมันเหมือนกับเป็น2ด้านคือทางฝั่งของตลาดที่พัฒนาแล้วสนใจแต่ว่าก็คงต้องไปคอนวินส์ให้เขาเนี่ยมาจ่ายในขณะอีกฝั่งหนึ่งยังไม่ได้รู้สึกเลยว่าทำไมถึงจะต้องมาดูแลเรื่องตรงสิ่งเหล่านี้แนวคิดในการบุกตลาดทั้ง2ฝั่งเนี่ยควรจะเหมือนหรือแตกต่างกันยังไงครับ
ค่ะคือเพราะว่าเรื่องโรงพยาบาลเนี่ยขยะที่ออกมาจากโรงพยาบาลเนี่ยมันเป็นเรื่องที่ใหญ่มากแล้วมันมีหลากหลายมากมีตั้งแต่เข็มฉีดยาไปถึงอะไรสารที่ตกค้างเหลือจากปฏิชีวนะหรือฮอร์โมนหรืออะไรอย่างเงี้ยค่ะซึ่งถ้าเขาวาดภาพไว้ตั้งแต่ต้นให้มันชัดๆว่าโอเคโรงพยาบาลคุณมีปัญหา1 2 3 4 5อย่างเงี้ยแล้วเราจะแก้ปัญหาที่5แล้วก็ทำให้คนดูหรือว่ากรรมการหรือว่าผู้บริโภคหรือว่าบริษัททั่วไปให้ตระหนักเข้าใจมากกว่านี้มันก็จะชัดเจนมากขึ้นแล้วก็จะทำให้เราเห็นว่าอันนี้น่าลงทุนจริงๆเพราะว่ามันมีวิธีที่จะแก้ปัญหานี้โดยการลงทุนตรงนี้อย่างเงี้ยค่ะแล้วก็วิธีapproach ตลาดอย่างนี้
ครับซึ่งต้องกลับมาที่เรื่องของความชัดเจนเรื่องการวางแผนตั้งแต่ตอนต้นนั่นแหละครับแต่ว่าจะว่าไปแล้วเรื่องของผลิตภัณฑ์มีจุดหนึ่งที่คณะกรรมการตั้งข้อสังเกตที่ค่อนข้างน่าสนใจเหมือนกันเขาบอกว่าตรงนี้เป็นนวัตกรรมใหม่ซึ่งแน่นอนว่าการพัฒนาเพื่อที่จะปกป้องหรือว่าป้องกันเรื่องของแบคทีเรียเนี่ยเวลาที่พัฒนาไประดับหนึ่งเดี๋ยวแบคทีเรียก็จะพัฒนาตัวเองอีกนะครับผมซึ่งระยะเวลาในการไม่ว่าจะเป็นเรื่องของการวิจัยการขอไลเซนส์มันก็นานพอสมควรอย่างนี้จะถือว่าเป็นโปรเจกต์ที่ feasible ไหมในความเป็นจริง
ประเด็นนี้พยังงงอยู่มากเลยค่ะเพราะว่ามันเป็นเรื่องจุลินทรีย์
ครับผมเอาละครับสำหรับในช่วงนี้นะครับเราจะไปติดตามภาพรวมของการนำเสนอแผนธุรกิจสำหรับกลุ่มสุดท้ายแล้วประจำวันนี้ไปตามชมกันเลยนะครับ